Welcome to NeonWorld 2022. This is our first event of 2022. And so let's get started off with Windows CE. We announced CE 20.4 back in November, and today we're announcing CE 20.5, with now a full screen widgets view. For the first time ever, so you can view your widgets full screen. This will be available in Q2 of 2023. Now let's get into the main event of today, Neon Dream. We announced the Neon Dream 2 series back in February of this year, and Neon Dream is all about some really big technologies. We have futuristic technologies, futuristic designs, and flagship devices that don't compromise on anything. There's futuristic designs, under-display cameras, 100% screen body ratios, and futuristic technologies like those under-display cameras, high refresh rates, and full-screen fingerprint scanners. And we have, all those different technologies. Under-display cameras, most durable designs, 100% screen body ratio, multi-day battery life, and desktop class performance. And today we're going to start using some new technologies, such as our new endoskeleton design that we talked about last month, and dedicated Neon GPUs for smartphones. And today we're excited to announce the next generation of Neon Dream. Here it is. This is Neon Dream 3. So let's talk about this display. It's a 6.3-inch mini LED display up from 6.2 inches from last year. It has over 10,000 mini LEDs with over 1,000 local dimming zones. And with that, it has 1200 nits brightness and 1800 nits peak brightness with HDR. And it's 144 Hz refresh rate. When it comes to power, we put in our new Snapdragon 40CX processor here, with 10 cores and 20 threads at a 4 GHz clock speed, and it's our first ARM v9 Neon Dream. And it has our Neon G30M graphics, with 10 teraflops, 2400 GB 3 cores, unified memory and 1.2 GHz clock speed, and obviously that unified memory, which is less memory that performs better. And so we've actually managed to get 12 gigabytes and 16 gigabytes of unified memory that performs better than last year. And when it comes to the camera, we have a quad camera setup with our main 200 megapixel wide sensor, which is a massive 1.25 inch sensor, 8K 60 FPS video for first time ever in the lower end model, 4K 120 FPS in Dolby Vision HDR, and an f1.5 aperture. We have that same exact sensor for the ultra wide lens, and the ultra wide lens has a 120 degree field of view. We have a 200 megapixel telephoto camera with a 50x optical zoom, 8K 30 FPS with 4K 60 FPS, Dolby Vision, and f2.0 aperture, and a periscope camera with 150x optical zoom, and this combines here with the telephoto so that we can combine together for up to 200x zoom. And we have a 50 megapixel ultra wide front camera which is underneath the display, and it's 130 degree field of view. And now let's talk about durability. We've put in a ceramic diamond glass on the sides, back, and even the front, and it's ceramic and diamond crystals in glass. And it also has IP6X dust resistance with WR50 water resistance, meaning you can go under 50 meters underwater. And so now let's talk about pricing and configurations. We start pricing off at just $699. $699 gets you 256 gigs of storage and 12 gigs of memory. For a little bit more, you can get 512 gigs. For a little bit more than that, you can get 768 gigs and 16 gigs of memory. And for $999, you can get a terabyte of storage and 16 gigs of memory. But we have something that's even more pro, and we like to show it to you. This is Neon Dream 3 Pro. So let's talk about these displays. The Neon Dream 3 Pro has a 6.1 inch micro LED display with 15,000 micro LEDs, 1,000 local dimming zones, and the brightest display on a smartphone, period, with 1,800 nits of brightness and 2,400 nits of peak brightness in HDR. And Neon Dream 3 Pro Plus, which is the bigger one, has a 6.9 inch micro LED display. So let's talk about this power. We have our Snapdragon 46 Plus processor with 16 cores, and 32 threads and 4.5 gigahertz clock speed, and ARMv9 as well. And we've put in our Neon Z30M graphics as well, with 12 teraflops, 4800 GB 3 cores, unified memory, and 2.4 GHz clock speed. And we've also implemented unified memory into the Dream 3 Pro Plus as well, with 16 gigs or 18 gigs of unified memory, making it the world's most powerful smartphone. So let's talk about this camera setup. We have, for the first time ever, a 6-camera setup in a smartphone. So what's in these 6 cameras? We have a 248 megapixel wide camera, which is an 1.5 inch sensor, 8K 120 FPS or 4K 240 FPS in Dolby Vision HDR, and f1.3 aperture. Same sensor for the ultra wide camera, and it has 130 degree field of view. We have a similar sensor for a 360 degree camera, and that completes 360 degrees, which is the first ever on a smartphone. We have a 248 megapixel telephoto camera, which does 8K 60 FPS video along with 4K 120 FPS at Dolby Vision, and 150x optical zoom. We have a similar camera for a periscope with an f1.6 aperture and a 300x optical zoom. This combines together with the telephoto to do a total of 500x optical zoom. And we have a night vision / thermal camera with an f1.0 aperture and 4K 60 FPS. And now let's talk about this durability. We find our ceramic diamond glass, obviously, and WR100 water resistance, along with IP6X dust resistance. And now let's talk about pricing configurations. Dream 3 Pro starts at $999, Dream 3 Pro Plus at $1099. So here's our configurations: 512 gigs and 16 gigs of memory starting at $999, 768 gigs it's $1099, 1 terabyte gets you 18 gigs of RAM as well, that's $1199, $1299 for 2 terabytes, and $1499 for 4 terabytes. And that was it. Stay tuned for NSC